Hey guys, hey, this is Anne Marie and this is the AntiHR channel. And, Cat Williams said that all things will be revealed in 2024. And like I said before, it seems like that is carrying over into 2025. Because yet again, we have another celebrity being accused of wrongdoing. And I want to talk a little bit about the workplace HR component related to the recent allegations against 85-year-old Smokey Robinson. One of my members in the anti-HR membership community posted in our community and asked me what my thoughts were about this. And I don't want my platform to turn into one where I talk about, celebrities on a regular basis, because really I don't have that much interest in what famous people do. I do not believe that people should be put on a pedestal just because they're rich, just because we see them on TV. Just because you see someone on TV is not a statement about their character. How good someone sings, dances, throws a football, dunks a basketball, skates across ice, jumps across, a gymnastic floor is no indicator of their character. And we live in a society that has a tendency to put people on a pedestal when they do something well. They do something well and they get notoriety for it. We act as if that translates into them having good character. And over, we see that that's not true. And I think a lot of us want to believe that that's an anomaly, but I actually think it's more normal than an anomaly. I think a lot of times, especially when people have been famous from a very young age, and right into their adulthood, they are not required to develop good character because they are lauded, they are treated differently from a very early age because of a special skill that they have, whether it's being a good basketball player or being a great pianist or being a great singer. And the people who have good character and that have reputations for being good people and having good character, and there are some celebrities who are known and who people have interacted with and said are good people. It takes work for them to develop that good character. It takes intention for them to choose to be good people, because it's very easy to not be a good person when you're rich and famous, because the people around you often are not going to tell you that you're wrong because you're paying them all. And so let us turn to Grandpa Smokey and the allegations. I will say that when I initially heard about this a couple weeks ago, I didn't pay much attention to it. I wasn't particularly surprised by it, but I didn't intend to talk about it until when I went back to look at it after the member post, I saw that LA County has opened up a criminal investigation. And when I saw that, it made me go back and take another look, because, people file civil lawsuits and they have a right to do so, right? If someone does wrong to you, you do not have to go and file a criminal complaint, even when the action might be criminal. Sometimes a person decides not to come forward years later when statutes of limitations might have run out, but they still have a right to file a civil suit, and so they do so. And this is not me throwing shade at anybody who does that. Everyone has to deal with this in their own way. And if you have been a victim of any type of abuse, whether it is physical abuse or mental abuse, you know that it takes time to process it, to even sometimes recognize that you have been harmed by it, and then make a decision about what you want to do about it. So this is not me knocking anyone who takes their time coming out with these things or deciding they don't want to deal with the police. They just want to go to civil court and get financial reparations. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I not only applaud people who do it, I encourage people to do it. Because sometimes the only thing that really wealthy people understand is getting smacked in the wallet. Really good. A good smack. A good financial smack. Same thing with employers. Unfortunately, a lot of times, the only thing employers understand is when they got to cut a big check. That's when they will often go back and review their policies, even fire people after the fact and demand some internal accountability, is when it costs them something, right? Employers almost never do the right thing because they recognize that it's the right thing. They do the right thing, including paying employees to leave jobs, which is something I help employees do, because they have exposure and they realize that if it gets into court in front of a jury, it could cost them a lot of money. So I understand why people go after financial reparations and often do not just go to the police and complain. A majority of women, and these are real statistics that you can Google, a majority of women who are sexually assaulted never file a complaint. A majority of people who file a complaint, nothing is done about it. And it doesn't mean that what they said isn't true. Often physical evidence is lost, other evidence is not available, corroborating evidence is not available, and you may or may not know that attorneys, state attorneys, district attorneys, attorneys general, they have discretion. This is something I was shocked to learn when I went to law school, is that the decision to charge and what to charge is the sole discretion of the district attorney's office. It is not reviewable by a judge. So if a district attorney decides not to bring charges for whatever whatever decision, you don't have any recourse in court to do anything about that. It's their discretion. Okay? So sometimes, after looking at what the police have, the decision is made not to bring charges. Police can also decide not to make an arrest in the first place. So there are lots of reasons why people do not go to the police, right? In this particular case, and I'm just sitting here looking at it because I want to make sure I'm getting the facts straight, because these are allegations and no criminal charge has been filed yet, but there is a civil complaint. And it says that 4 former housekeepers of Mr. Robinson filed a lawsuit. This is the Associated Press, okay? Dated May 15, 2025. I'll get my facts straight. And they said that 4 former housekeepers of Mr. Robinson filed a lawsuit alleging that he repeatedly raped and sexually assaulted them, in some cases for years while they worked for him. And they're also saying that his wife is also named in the suit for creating a hostile work environment. It's not clear whether she's aware of the sexual assault, but that she also created an abusive work environment, including using ethnic slurs. The implication is that these women have immigrant backgrounds. It's not clear what their race or ethnicity is, but that they have immigrant backgrounds. They all are filing as Jane Does. This is LA. There's a lot of immigrant employment in LA. People working in people's homes for less than what they might make if they were citizens. People are worried, especially now, about being arrested, deported, ICE snatching them. They said the women appeared in the news conference with the attorney with their faces covered so that people could not recognize them. And when I was reading the story, which I will link to this video, it says that the women did not realize till later, this is the allegation, that they were all victims working in the house. Some of them worked at the same time for the household. Some of them came after each other, but they said they did not know, and that they are now, communicating because they all have learned that they are victims. It also says that the personal assistant to Mr. Robinson's wife also has indicated that she was also assaulted. Former housekeepers are alleging that Mr. Robinson would wait till they were alone with him at home, and that is when the misconduct occurred. And it's interesting because they all are alleging very similar experiences, even though, according to the story, they did not know that each other was experiencing this until later. So the women are alleging that the wrongdoing happened between 2007 and 2024, and a $50 million lawsuit has been filed. We have to also remember that SA is not also always, the big R. There are other ways of performing SA against someone without it being just that one thing. So, unwanted touching people without their permission, touching people in suggestive ways, cornering people. Anytime you touch someone in a sexual manner without their permission, that could constitute SA, right? Also, forcing yourself on them obviously is SA. But it's also important to remember that it's not just that, because when people are in these kinds of vulnerable positions where their immigration status is in flux and they are, people who can't just go out and get a job anywhere, it makes them vulnerable, right? So these people are employees of this person. They're working their home. The allegations are is that when people were alone with him, these assaults would take place. So it's very important to recognize that, again, when people are in vulnerable situations, they are easier to victimize. And, this is similar to conversations around even people who are on work visas. And I've talked about that in other videos, how people who are on H-1B visas and other work visas will often accept mistreatment in the workplace, and they will not complain because they're worried about losing their work visa. If they get fired, they can't get another job unless somebody else is willing to sponsor them for another H-1B visa. So it doesn't automatically just follow them in every instance. So people who are on even work visas have a tendency to be vulnerable to mistreatment in workplaces like office settings. So just consider what it's like for someone who is working as a housekeeper in a very famous person's home. Smokey Robinson has been famous since he was 20-something years old with the Miracles. Smokey Robinson been famous since before I was born, I think, right? From the time when I was born, Smokey Robinson was already famous, quite famous, right? And was famous right through my youth, right? And up to now, he's 85 years old. He's still touring. I saw footage of him gyrating or doing something to promote his last record. Was it a year ago? And I thought it was odd when I saw it because I was like, how old is that man? But anyway, which doesn't mean he did it. But all I am saying is I do now feel more inclined to believe that where there's smoke, there might be fire, because the fact that the LA County Special Victims Unit has now decided to get involved and to open up a criminal investigation. And generally that doesn't happen with every civil suit that gets filed of this nature. It happens when the person in charge decides that there is at least enough surface evidence to investigate further. So it'll be very interesting to see where this goes and how it unfolds. Smokey Robinson's attorney, and it's important to say this, has said that, I'm going to read the statement, "We feel confident that a determination will be made that Mr. Robinson did nothing wrong and that this is a desperate attempt to prejudice public opinion and make even more of a media circus than the plaintiffs were previously able to create." His attorney is saying there's no merit to the allegations and that this is about them trying to get money out of him. Now, the allegations aren't just about sexual assault, which I think is interesting. They're also claiming that they are owed back wages, they're owed payments that they did not previously receive. So there's some other things relevant to following, workplace laws and wage and labor and hour rules relevant to these former housekeepers that worked in this household. But this is something that is also important to note, that this is not just about a claim of, assault, but it's also about a claim that these two people who are employers, he might be a famous singer, but he's also an employer in this case, engaged in behavior that is illegal from wage and hour law standpoint, as well as criminal standpoint, right? So it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. But I think for me, the takeaway is that we remember that workplaces aren't just offices. People can work, homes can also be workplaces. The babysitter that works in the house, the housekeeper that works in the house. And a lot of times these people can be very vulnerable to mistreatment. And, people who work in these types of environments are not only people of Latino background, but, people from the Caribbean, people from African countries, people who look like me, also work in these environments and are also can be vulnerable and mistreated. People who have immigrant status are very vulnerable to mistreatment when their immigrant status is in flux, right? And a lot of what makes capitalism work in America is all these different people who work and pay taxes, but do not get the same benefits under the law or even under workplaces laws in terms of how they are treated in the workplace, because their employers feel like I can treat this person any way I want, because who they going to tell? Who they going to call? They going to call the police on me? I'm famous. and their status is in question. People hire people knowing their status is in question because they can pay them less and they can get away with mistreating them. And that's the reality, right? So in this particular instance, these four, former housekeepers have now, at some point, someone started talking to someone, I suspect, and came to realize that they had similar experiences, and they have now lawyered up and are bringing these claims that, as I said, is not just about these allegations of assault, but also about not being paid and being owed money after the fact, right? And based on my experience, I don't think that these allegations are necessarily unfounded, but I do think it's important to wait and see where this all goes, right? But I do think it's interesting development that the LA County, and I want to be accurate, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Special Victims Bureau is actively investigating the criminal allegations against Mr. Robinson. That's the statement that has been put out as of May 15th, 2025. So this is a story that I'm going to continue to follow. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. But I think one of the other lessons is, it's really important for us to realize that all of these people are people too. And there are a few, probably a handful of celebrities that I hold in high regard, but I don't hold them in such high regard that if something were to come out tomorrow that I would be like, oh, it could never be so-and-so. Because the reality is that we are all human beings. We all fail. I do not believe that anybody is the worst thing that they ever did or the best thing that they ever did. We are all somewhere in between, right? But I do believe even if the worst thing that you ever did cannot and should not define you, that you still cannot and should not escape accountability for that thing. And even if you own it and say you're sorry for it, you have to realize that you still have to be accountable. And one of the things that happens when people are famous is that they often get to escape accountability that the average person would not get to escape, right? And so when people talk about, oh, well, they're just after money. Well, the reality is that a lot of times that's the only thing that people like this understand is if they get hit in the wallet, because they have legal teams that over and over are able to shield them from criminal accountability. A lot of times people pay settlements. They, settle things quietly. They get people to sign NDAs before they come work for them. People a lot of times do not realize that an NDA does not shield an employer from criminal behavior. So they feel like even after they leave that they can't do anything. And so they just remain silent. Shame and fear are very powerful emotions, right? And people are afraid, and especially when someone is famous and very wealthy, people who work for them realize that this person has a level of power that the average person does not have and has a longer reach. And of course, they also, in the entertainment business is a very small community. People move around. People are afraid they won't get referrals. They won't be able to find another job if they make any noise. Even housekeepers, when you deal with people who are wealthy and hire housekeepers, a lot of times you hire people by referral. I live in Mexico. I had a housekeeper for a while. I don't have one right now because I'm not here enough to have a housekeeper. But I had a housekeeper for a while, and I found my housekeeper through a referral. When people hire people for these kinds of jobs, it's usually word of mouth. That is how they get them. And so the reality is that people worry that if I say anything about how this person treated me, I won't get another job. I won't be able to get another job doing this, right? And so people just are quiet. And then if you add immigration issues into that, you are almost guaranteed most of the time that people aren't going to say anything. And so you can get away with doing all kinds of things. And many of them do. I don't think we even hear 2% of the things that happen in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry in terms of the mistreatment that employees experience at the hands of famous people. Most of it you will never know. People pay people and they make it go away quietly, and it's the end of it. It's only when people engage in the most egregious things for years and years and years and years that you might eventually hear about it. So that is why I take such offense when people want to come into the comments and question whether people are telling the truth. The data says that the majority of people who claim to have experienced sexual assault are not lying. They're telling the truth. There's a very small percentage where someone will not tell the truth, but the reality is that the majority of people who bring these claims are telling the truth, and a lot of times, even though they're telling the truth, nothing is done about it. So when people are brave enough to come forward and say that this thing happened to them, whether it is in a workplace, in someone's home as well, because these things happen at work. These things happen at work. People are sexually assaulted at work. People are harassed at work. These things happen at work, because all kinds of people end up in our workplaces. So these things also happen at work. And when powerful people do things, they are often shielded. Boards will shield them. Management will shield them. And accountability is hard to come by sometimes when someone has power. And then when you add fame on top of it, it's very difficult. So I think that, when people bring these complaints, we should just not dismiss them out of hand as being false. And we should just wait to see what unfolds. So as I'm saying, these are allegations against Mr. Robinson. We will have to see where they're going. But I think it is very interesting that the County Special Victims Bureau is now opening up investigation that feels that there's enough for them to open up an active criminal investigation. So let me know what you think about this latest celebrity development in terms of a celebrity mistreating someone that works for them. And again, make sure that your comments are constructive. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment. I'm gonna wait. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. And please do, tell a friend about my channel. I always appreciate that. I'm really still hoping to hit, I would love to get to 40,000 subscribers by the end of this year. That's a really big goal for me. But I feel like I can do it with your help. So please, share my content with other people, hit the subscribe button, visit my website and subscribe to my website as well. And if you are a person dealing with ongoing workplace issues and you need support, don't forget that the AntiHR membership community is now open. We have a really nice growing community that is developing over there where people are talking to each other and sharing information about navigating difficult work environments. I also share a lot of resources, including master course access and other resource access to help people deal with HR issues and HR challenging issues, up and including navigating discriminatory hostile work environments and creating strategies and plans for exits that include exiting with severance, or cashing out, as I like to call it, or leaving, but not without your coin. So if that's of interest to you, please make sure that you visit my website and click on Join the AntiHR membership community and join me over there with the rest of the members so we can keep in touch. I'm getting ready to hit the road again. Y'all do know I like to travel. But I will still be dropping videos while I'm traveling. I will be sharing content while I'm traveling, so I'm not going to miss a beat this time. Story time is coming up soon. I have a good one for you guys this week. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you like this video and do comment, but do so constructively. I always appreciate having you guys here. I appreciate your support of my work and my content. Thanks for watching. And always remember, HR is not your enemy, but they're definitely not your friend, but I am. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.